exciting? Is the energy great?
Yes.
My name is Richard Lewis, and I'm the founder of the RTL Foundation. And it's my honor to host all of you this evening. RTL Foundation, just really briefly, we're a 501c3. Our mission is to provide and support educational opportunities in the areas of history, technology, and entrepreneurship. We have 17 nonprofits that call this place home. There are 17 BIPOC-led and serving nonprofits, I should say. They call this space home. We have podcast studios. You're working out of our event space right now. We're all sitting in our event space. It's almost an art gallery with all these amazing portraits. And so we stay pretty busy. But when we learned about these portraits, when we learned about the portrait gallery at the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame, as busy as we are, we knew we needed to add one more thing to our plate. We knew we had to have these portraits here. We knew we wanted to bring it here. We invited the hall to share their portraits with our community for the entire month of March. And it's mostly a BIPOC selection because the RTL Foundation is a BIPOC leading organization. The Colorado Women's Hall of Fame celebrates amazing women, and the intersection is BIPOC women. And that is what we're doing right now. We're celebrating Women's History Month the way it deserves to be celebrated, surrounded by the faces. Absolutely, we're surrounded by the faces and stories of extraordinary women who helped shape Colorado. Tonight we're closing out that month in the best possible way, hearing directly from some of those women. So again, it's been a privilege and an honor to host this exhibit tonight. We're so happy to have all of you with us. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Executive Director of the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame, my longtime friend, Barela.
Thank you, Rich. Well, I was a longtime friend, but I also worked with Rich at RTL Networks for a number of years, so he's kind of coming home. So welcome, everyone. So I got to figure what I am on this thing. Okay. I'm so glad you all are here with us this evening as we come together to celebrate the final couple days of Women's History Month and honoring her story, the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame changemakers, and these lovely ladies and inspirational women of the Hall. There's something powerful about being in a room like this, and with these ladies, and with a couple of other of our inductees with us. I'll mention those in a minute. A room filled with people who understand that behind every step forward in our communities, there are women whose leadership made it possible. Tonight we celebrate those women. The inductees of the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame are leaders, innovators, and change makers. Women who did not just imagine a better future, they helped create it, often with grit and always with purpose and a kind of grace that continues to inspire us all. That is really what tonight is about, honoring their stories and recognizing how those stories matter. Because when you tell women's stories, we don't just preserve history, we open the door to what is possible for the future. Before we continue, I would like to take a moment to recognize the incredible partners and supporters who made this work possible. To our sponsors at El Pomar, they're out there. We're grateful for your continued support and engagement with the Hall, and truly honoring the impact of Colorado's extraordinary women, especially including Julie Penrose, Colorado Women's Hall of Fame inductee, class of 2022. Thank you to Erin Hannon, Stella Hodgkins, and their guest, Patty Salazar, joining us this evening. And to the RTL Foundation and Rich Lewis for hosting and sponsoring this evening's event and for presenting the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame's portraits for the month of March. Your commitment, yes, thank you. Your commitment to elevating women's voices and preserving these powerful stories is what allows events like this to happen. and we truly appreciate our partnership with the RTL Foundation. I'd also like to warmly acknowledge our honored guests this evening. The amazing co-founder and driving force behind the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame, ML Hansen, and her wonderful husband, Michael. ML created the Hall of Fame in 1984. It's been a long ride, and she's done some very amazing things with this organization. We also have one of our inductees, Velveeta Golightly Howe, joining us this evening, class of 2020. The panelists that you'll meet in a minute. I'm not going to tell their story just yet. I've been already warned by Ms. Tietjen. We'd like to recognize the following community leaders: Senator James Coleman. And we have a few of our board members here this evening that I would, and Ms. B. Harris, raise your hand. Class of 2020 as well. I'm sorry, B. I must have missed it on the list. Too many names. Okay. Board member Kim Sasko. You can just wave. Shelley Eeyore Johnson. I think she's out there. J.C. Elbeck. Alyssa McComb. I don't think Wendy's made it yet. Jason Mundell. And then Yolanda will be heading up here in a minute. Thank you for all your people ahead. Your presence here reflects a shared belief in the importance of recognizing and celebrating the women's impact across Colorado. We're so grateful to have each of you with us. Please take a moment and connect with our guests and board members after the event. And now I would like to introduce our Vice Chair, Yolanda Mead.
Thank you, Barb. Very good. Everyone hear me? All the way up. Everyone, can you hear me? Good? All right. Thank you, Barb. And now we move to the heart of our evening. One of the most powerful ways we honor her story is by hearing it directly from the women who are living it. Tonight we have the privilege of learning from an extraordinary panel of Colorado Women's Hall of Fame inductees, each with a story that reflects leadership, resilience, and transformational impact. As you listen, lean in. Listen to not just what they've accomplished, but how they chose, but how they did it, the choices they made, and the challenges they faced, and the lessons they have carried along the way. Because when these stories, there is something for all of us. And guiding this incredible conversation tonight, we are fortunate to have a true champion of her story. Please join me in welcoming our moderator for the evening, Jill Tietjen. Jill, let me back up. Colorado Women's Hall of Fame class of 2010 is a nationally recognized engineer, author, and one of the most passionate advocates for women in leadership you will ever encounter. A registered professional engineer with more than 40 years in the electric utility industry, Jill has served as national president of the Society of Women Engineers and has mentored countless women and girls in STEM along the way. She's the co-author of the award-winning book, Her Story, a timeline of the women who changed America. And her work is featured in the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame film, Engineering Women Back into History. Through her leadership, her advocacy, and her storytelling, Jill continues to elevate women's achievements and inspire future generations. She is, every sense of the word, a champion of her story. Jill, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Yolanda.
You're welcome.
she asked me if I wanted to approve that before she read it, and I said no. I didn't know what she was going to say. I am delighted to be here this evening. We have an incredible panel for you. And what I've asked them to do, each of them, is instead of someone else reading their bio, I have asked them to tell a little bit about themselves. I told Gail I would time her. She asked me to do that. So we're just going to go in order, Gail and Lily and Patricia, and they can introduce themselves as they go.
Okay, hello everybody, and I want to say first of all, Jill, I want to say thank you to Richard. I want to say thank you to El Pomar, and thank you so much to the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame for putting this event on tonight. I think it is just so important to do it, and it makes me think about Women's History Month and the fact of it's really about contributions of all women over time, beginning of time, and because of their contributions and accomplishments, our journeys are what they could be, and what we did became possible. So I'm a New York City kid. I was born in Harlem. I spent early formative years in the Brooklyn projects, Red Hook projects. I am the third child of 6 siblings. I am the oldest girl, so I know I'm in charge. I will say that I grew up in a very Afrocentric household. I have Caribbean and Southern roots, and they were celebrated and nurtured in my home. My parents also were people who believed in service, and they use that phrase that service is really the rent you pay for living on the planet, and so that was very in the forefront of everything we had to do. In 1975, 3 things happened that changed the course of my life. In 1975, I had gone to college for 2 years, and even though I was working several jobs, I ran out of money. So I find myself back home in Brooklyn, working as a cashier in a drugstore, trying to think about how I'm going to finance my college education because I'm determined I want to do that. In 1975, the second thing that happened was President Ford signed the public law that allowed women to attend military service academies. And then the third thing was that I have an older brother who went to the Air Force Academy right here in Colorado Springs. He graduated in 1975, stayed behind to work as an admissions advisor, and he encouraged me to fly. So, being in the first integrated class of women at the academy was like having a door open. Now, I didn't know what was behind that door, so there was fear, excitement, apprehension, but I walked through it, and it changed the trajectory of my life and put me on a path in the military that just provided so many opportunities. I got to work in various fields, research and development, project management, joint doctrine. I got to lead some international interoperability committees. I got to command a couple of times and lead large organizations. And I'm grateful for all those skill sets that I got. I just recently retired from civil service. I did 30 years in the military, another 15 in civil service. And so just retired to be the chief of staff at the Air Force Academy, and just look forward to really continuing to work in the community and pass on those skills. So,
My face can lie. I'm from China. Not New York. I was born in 1963 when there's a 3-year disaster, natural disaster happened in China. So grew up with actually a military family. Both my parents were in the army. What I should say is that I was not supposed to be born because the hard economy and the military strength, and my mom really doesn't want to have a second child. But when she tried very hard, tried to have an abortion, the nurse basically refused to honor her request. That's how I was born.
So with Chinese tradition, man is one to run the world. When my sister born is a girl, I was born is another girl. So my father didn't have a choice, but gave me a name that's really sounded like a girl, but really means a man. You know, my name is Lily, and the Chinese character means stand straight like a man, be independent. And so that's my background. And grew up in China, of course, treated like a son, so I had to do everything myself. My sister was 7 years older than me, so I can't really get help from her. And being independent is part of my character. I graduated from high school. I went to my mom and said, what should I go to college? What should I study? And my mom said, well, my father was a Chinese medicine doctor, so you may want to study medicine. I tried very hard. You know, I admire people like Gail, you know, very striving in science, in physics, in space engineering. I have no idea how those work. My brain, God didn't give me the brain to study science. I just say that my math was good, my chemistry was good, my biology was good, but my physics was not there. So I failed the first year for college entrance exam because of the science I paid. So the second year, I tried again. But this time, my mom said, you could study law, because my father was also the Supreme Court judge. So I said, okay, well, I guess that might be easier, since it doesn't need to take a science examination. So I went to law school, graduated with honors, and became passed the first national bar exam after Cultural Revolution, and become the youngest and the only female in my law firm. But you know, life turned a turn, and I came to this country 39 years ago. And all my study in China has wasted because I speak no English. So all the words I could say when I first came to this country was, how do you do? And then bye-bye. So I had to re-educate myself again. First started English as a second language. Probably you heard about the Spring School of International Language Institute. And then because I was an attorney, I wanted to pursue law again. And I first got a paralegal degree. And then surprisingly, I had twins. I had to go back home. And after 9 months, I forgot all the English I learned. So I went back to school, and this time I started human service management. Just wanted to get my English back into the field. By that time, I know American has so many attorneys already, they don't need another one speaking English. So that's how I started a business and got an MBA. And in 1992, 5 years after I came to this country, China published their first ever adoption law. And the first American family I stayed with, Dr. and Mrs. Lehman, had 4 biological children, and then they adopted 4 African American and special needs children. So after 6 months I stayed with them, I called them my American mom and dad. And look at this law, I thought about, well, you know, China had a one-child policy. There are so many children, girls, was abandoned. If they were not born, they were abandoned. And they were stuck in the orphanages. So maybe it can, as a Chinese attorney, I can help Dr. and Mrs. Lehman to adopt another child, since they love me so much. So that's just a simple idea, and that's how, and when my husband and I started CCAI, Chinese Children Adoption International. That's in 1992, and by 1998, we became the largest China-focused adoption agency in the world. And after 33 years, we have 13,385 orphan children to find their permanent home in the U.S. and 15 other countries. And they, yes, that's my story.
I don't know how to follow that. My God, it's really amazing. Well, most of the women that are inducted are. Just incredible. First of all, Richard, thank you, Richard. So good. Thank you, you're great. And El Tamar, I sit on the Denver Council of El Tamar, and so thank you. Yeah, part of the family. My name is Patricia Barela Rivera, and people know me as PBR. That's absolutely. But, because I have that long name, and I'm really proud of my name, because Barela is my father's and Rivera is my mother's. I took the whole family name down. I come from a totally different place than both of them, and you know, we all have our own story. I grew up in a town outside of Albuquerque, New Mexico called Corrales. And I don't know if you've heard of Corrales. It's beautiful. It's like a mini Santa Fe. It's right on the Rio Grande. And Mom and Dad had me. I'm an only child, which is really unusual for a Hispanic family, but that's what happened. And we lived with my grandfather, my mother's father, my grandpa Guadalupe, who was my #1 person in the world because he taught me a lot of things about who I am today. He was he did everything. I mean, he was just a very accomplished man, and I learned a lot from him. So about 7 years we were there with my grandpa. He had a 25-acre orchard in the back and had a 3-story home. And being an only child, let me tell you, I had a fabulous life. Learned to really play by myself and do things. And so did that for 7. Then Mom and Dad moved to Alameda, which is outside of Albuquerque, which is like Lakewood is to Denver. They built a home. In those days, I'm about 8th generation citizen of this nation because I am Spanish, Native American, and Portuguese. So we're really mixed. And so when we moved to Alameda, Mom and Dad built an adobe home, and I'm not kidding, it was a big home. They built that adobe home for $700, if you can imagine. I mean, it was a huge house on 2 acres of land, and in those times, my grandparents, every time a child would get married, they'd give them 2 acres of land. So we were on 2 acres of land. So we had a small ranch. We had cattle, we had horses, goats, calves, and I learned how to drive a tractor first. I learned how to pull calves, I would fall into the mud up to my neck, and Dad would wake me up at 2 or 3 in the morning, so the cattle's out. Patricia, you gotta help me. I mean, I learned to work very, very hard. So it was not easy, but they were so wonderful. I really miss Mom and Dad. They were my heart and my soul. And then when I'd go in the house, Mom would say, take off the dirty clothes, get in the shower, and get dressed, and then have dinner. I had the best of both worlds because Mother wanted me to take dance lessons and piano lessons, and Dad wanted me to work crazy. I mean, on horse, and I can remember falling off horses and Dad, and this was the first time in my life that I realized who I was. I can remember I came home from high school one day, and I got on a horse bareback, and I was barreled down the field, and I fell at the very end of the field. Dad saw me, and I fell, and I started crying, and I could hear Dad saying, wipe your tears and wipe the dust off your butt and get back on, Patricia. Get back on. That was my lesson. Seriously. I can still hear him telling me that. So I think that's one of the reasons that I am who I am. Because, they taught me to work hard. They taught me to be also a feminine female and someone who just, when you're an only child, I mean, that's it. I mean, and I tell you, I had the best of both worlds. Went to college at the University of New Mexico. Got my degree in business administration. I started out in home economics because I can remember my counselor telling me the only thing you young women are good for is really to be secretaries and to cook. Well, I landed up in that college class for only 2 months. Seriously, I couldn't handle it. I went crazy. And I thought, I could have been a range climber. I could have been a forester. I could have had a great position because that's what I was taught. I was taught a lot about agriculture and animals, and I mean, it was amazing. So, went to college, got my degree, got married with an athlete in college, and we were all married 8 months. That's it. And I knew it was time to get out. No, seriously. Those things really make impact on our lives. Because let's tell you, culturally, you never do that. As a Latina, you never do that. You stick it out no matter what, from hell or high water, right? A lot of you know that. So, got divorced, moved on with my life. I have a son, my great son, Rob. He owns his own horse business, and he is on the pro rodeo circuit. So he's done really, really well for him. He's wonderful. My son is fabulous. He lives in New Mexico in Mom and Dad's house. And I talk to him all the time. He's great. But then I went on, and my career was very interesting. I started out at the University of New Mexico I started out as an assistant and went on to another university, and then became a career placement director and the dean of students, and it kept getting better and better and better, and things just happened. I did not have a career path. I did not. A lot of people do, but through the grace of God, I'm very blessed, and I think a lot of it has to do with our own attitude and how we see the world. But went on and landed up working for the U.S. Forest Service. And let me tell you, that was, and we'll talk about this later, but that's when I learned all about racism and sexism. I went to Pocatello, Idaho. My first job in the federal government. It was painful. I can remember crying every night saying, God, what's happened here? Because I had never faced it. Because in New Mexico, you just get along with everybody. You're not any different. Sure, we have Mexican food, we have German food, we have tacos, we have, enchiladas, all that, but it's not that my mother and Dad always told me, and this, I can remember this, Dad would always say, and Mother, you're a child of the world, and you belong wherever you go. Isn't that beautiful? And for them to raise me that way, I tell you, I'm so blessed. And of course we had hardships, but we were a middle-class family. We were never poor. Thank you, my God. You know, so went on, worked for the U.S. Forest Service for 6 years. I got out because the racism was extensive. Moved out, started my own business, PDR Associates, and traveled all over the country, did keynote addresses all over the country, landed up on the Phil Donahue show. Does somebody know Phil Donahue? I landed up on his show completely. That's crazy. And that was all about racism, which is fascinating. And that's another story. But anyway, did that, and here I am. I'll tell you
Well, we've heard that parents are a primary set of role models and mentors. And I think that's and or brothers, mothers and fathers. Now, I just heard you, and I'm going to call you PDR instead of Patricia. I can do either one. I just heard that there was significant racism where you were, but you ended up in a really good place. And so I'd like each of you, and we'll just go this way since we only have one mic and we're sharing it. And I'd like to hear about any, in addition to your parents or in addition to your siblings, for those that had siblings, what were the primary role models or mentors or sponsors that you had during your career? And maybe you could just pick one or two, but we don't really have time for a lot more than that, that you that you could talk about in terms of the role that they had. And then I'd actually also like for you to reflect on the role you've played as a role model or mentor or sponsor.
Change the question. Is this better? So I'm going to talk about a role model, and her name is Marcelly Harris. Marcelly Jordan Harris was the first African-American female general in the Air Force. She was the first African-American female and first female aircraft maintenance officer in the Air Force. And our lives passed when she was a major and I was a cadet at the Air Force Academy. She was one of 2 women who they brought in to be commanders over the cadet squadrons. And so she was someone I could look at, see how she conducted herself, see why she was successful. But what she did was invite us to her home. She took the time to hear what was going on with me personally, try to give advice and guidance. So she created these safe spaces for there were 5 and then 3 African-American women there. So she really took us under her wing. And then throughout her career, our paths crossed many times. And so I think about her as a role model. And one of the things that I think I was left with was, when you're the first, you have a responsibility to make sure that you're not the last. And that she worked, it was very intentional how she spent time with us. And so I think about how I carried that forward throughout my 30-year military career. So in every organization I was in, where I could see different women, which was rare in the early days, sometimes it was just me, but even if there were other women, other men, or other different demographics, I would always try to create institutional spaces for forums, for sensing sessions, so I could hear what was going on with those individuals, what their concerns were, and then what was ever in my power to do to try to advocate, to give that voice, I made that a priority, to make sure that the people above me knew, do you know what's happening to the women here? And the daycare on base is not sufficient. Did anybody ever tell you that we're spending all this money and all this time? Or do you realize that people aren't getting promoted? They don't feel a sense of belonging. So wherever I was at, I think that's what I carried forward from the example she gave me was, how do you hear what's going on with people And then how do you try to advocate?
Okay, my mentor. I already mentioned my mom. She was my mentor when I grew up in China. I pretty much looked at her and do what she told me to do. Very good kid. But after I came to this country, I mentioned Mrs. Liz Lehman. She was my first English teacher. And that's how I get into the U.S. culture. Understand the families, adopted family and the biological family. That's also from the Layman's. My another mentor is Ruth Calvo. That's Dr. Rob Calvo was my husband's dean in the Denver Seminary. So she speaks perfect Chinese, and she was the one helped me to settle down in Denver. She showed me from the very beginning how to go shopping and realize how to call the fruits and vegetables in English and how to open a bank account so I can have a checkbook, and she showed me how to write checkbook. But most importantly, I have to say, she also showed me the kind of a mother's love and care for children and care. I wasn't interested in any children. And my pregnancy with twins was a surprise pregnancy. I was taking birth control medicine. So she was my children's grandma. And another thing, she taught me how to drive. I always told Barbara, and even Jill today, I almost not come here because this location is so far away and this timing is traffic hour. But what she told me is that if you're driving north, you can see the mountain and you are on the right direction. And then she told me the X and Y coordinator point is what's that? Broadway and Alameda. So like today, this address is 2900 Walton. That means the 29th block north of Alameda on Walton. I had also another mentor. It's my first boss when I first came to Denver. And she was the president of Gold Star Building Maintenance. She was maintaining or janitorial service for 50 business buildings in the tech center. And I was hired because she heard I was a Chinese attorney, and she's a Korean immigrant. And her father owns Gold Star Enterprise in South Korea. And so after 6 months, although she tried to teach me some English and managed to speak some Chinese, Koreans speak Chinese. And so we communicate okay, but finally I said, I really need to go to school to learn English. Not from you who speak Korean English or something. But she wasn't offended. She looked into my eyes and she said, you're young and smart and educated. If you put your mind into anything, you will be successful. And that really meant a lot to me at that time. So that's my mantra.
We all have mentors at different segments of our life. And my very first mentor, as I thought about it as I grew older, was my dad. I'll tell you why. Dad, when I was about 4 or 5 years old, he was really involved in the community. That's why my heart's in the community. I can remember going with him about 5 or 6 years old, and he would He said, Patricia, now you gotta go with me and you gotta hand out all the papers to people when we go to these meetings in the community. It's okay. So we'd go to a place and he'd sit me on the bar. We usually go to bars. Sit me on the bar with my little Shirley Temple. And he'd talk to people and he'd say, and let me tell you who he was helping. He was helping people who did not have water, who did not have bathrooms, did not have a decent home or roofs on their head, beyond their houses have it. And so he really taught me what community was about. And that's where my heart and soul is in the community. And you know, Mom and Dad always said, you sit on your ego, Patricia, you're not better than anybody else. You help as many people as you can because it's going to come back to you. You know, God is good. We have a saying in New Mexico, una mano se lava la otra. One hand washes the other. And that's the way I was raised. So Dad and then my grandma, she was a hellraiser. And let me tell you, she would always say to me, I love you more than all of my 9 children because you have got guts. She says, you were the first one to leave New Mexico. You were the first one to get divorced. She was really on it. I mean, she was a modern woman. And she was so proud of me. And she would always say that to me. And I will never forget that, ever. So those were really my role models. And I had an aunt who was had a very high level job at the Los Alamos, you know, the labs that they had there. And she was really high level, and she would always, you know, I'd always look at the way she looked and the way she dressed and the way she spoke. And she always said, no, Patricia, you could get a job like this. And I mean, for Christmas and my birthday, she always buy me very beautiful jewelry and beautiful sweaters. And I gotta tell you, I learned a lot from them. But I have a lot of role models, but and my number one, they're number one, but I gotta tell you who really changed my life. Gloria Steinem. I got to meet her. And I was in a meeting with her, with 15 other women. And I was just getting ready to leave the government. I didn't know what to do. And she came to speak to us. And I was the first one to ask her a question. I says, Ms. Steinem, I says, why did you start Ms. Magazine? She looked at me and she says, well, you know, the reason I started Ms. Magazine was because I felt so uneasy in that male world and I was very devalued all the time. And she says, you know what? That's when I started Ms. Magazine. And you know what? You need to really empower yourself and do what's right for you. And just get out there and go for it. What she did is she gave me permission. And I'll never forget that as long as I live. And that was very empowering, really empowering.
All right, we're going to start back with Patricia. We'll throw the microphone back there. You didn't get to talk because I cut you off.
Yes, you did.
As being
Yes, you did, Jill.
a champion for small business and a huge advocate for small business. What advice do you have for anyone in the audience tonight looking to start and succeed with their own business?
I was with the U.S. Small Business Administration for 11 years. I was the first Hispanic woman, first woman in the country to be a Hispanic woman to be a district director out of 70 offices, and it was not easy. And Carolyn was my employee. Carolyn Turau, who I adore, and I hired her to come here
30 years ago.
Yeah. And so what happened is I made a concerted effort that when I became the director of the Small Business Administration for the state, that I was going to get all the employees out from behind their desks and go out in the community. Remember that, Carolyn?
Yes, ma'am.
And let me tell you, my staff didn't like me. They hated it. No, seriously. It's the truth. They said, well, we've never been out from our desks, and why is she doing this? Because you know what? The people in this country are paying your salary. And you owe everybody that opportunity. I don't care who it is. You remember that, Carolyn, this man. I was tough. I mean, I was not taking any prisoners at that time. I wasn't. I mean, I says, you know what? We're here for the people. So the way you start a business is if any of you are interested, first of all, you have to be creative and you have to have a passion for what you want to do. And you have to do your research. You want to start, and also the other thing I've been telling you, I tell a lot of women this, and men, be careful who you tell. You should never really tell anyone what you're doing. Do it smart, do it strategically, and be focused. So the Small Business Administration really helps people. It helps with business, but you need a business plan. You know, there's some business owners here, and it is not easy. I started a business, a consulting business. It was difficult. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But I learned very quickly. Surround yourself with positive people. Surround yourself with people that are supportive of you and what you're doing. And make sure that the market needs that product that you are going, you're going to sell or whatever. So there's a lot of pieces to it. And I made notes on it, but I know that time is of the essence here. But anyone can start a small business. If you're smart, you're passionate, you're a hard worker, you don't sleep that much. So you have a good board of directors or advisors around you, and people that you trust. I mean, there's a lot to it, and all you have to do is go on www.sba.gov. They've got everything from A to Z that you want to know. That's how we helped Richard, Carolyn and I, and we helped him with contracts, federal contracts. And he's done very well because he's smart and because he had a good product. So, you know, SBA has made a lot of millionaires. And as a matter of fact, my last word is when I was there for 11 years, we gave loans to women and people of color and non-minorities, $1.2 billion of loans. And that was the proud of that. So it was not an easy job because I had to deal with usually men president bankers who did not want to see me. And I'd always take, and so some of you men who are bankers, whatever works. Whatever works. But, let me tell you, I gotta tell you, I was there and I always took a mail with me. Because, you know, I would ask them a question and they would answer to my mail boy. Not good, but that's okay. That's okay. I do get angry. I thought, you know what? That's the way the world is. You flow with it, and what you do is you outsmart people. That's all. Right? You become tough, and you learn the game, and you become very strategic, and you learn what to say, how to say it, and when to say it. So it has a lot to do with strategy, a lot of strategy. But so I already gave you a reference or a resource where to look up for small. But you know, I got to tell you, if you have a passion to run a small business, do it. Don't wait for anyone to give you the permission. And there's loans out there where you can get loans. You know, it really is easier than you think. We make it more difficult. The resources are there for you.
Everyone up here has passion. And we're going to get to that in just a second, but I want to follow up with something that Patricia said. Because she said you don't have to ask for permission, but there's another part to it too. And I think this is why you said don't tell anybody. I'm not sure why you said don't tell anybody, but my experience is that if you tell enough people or you ask enough people, someone will say no. And why do you want to do that? Why do you want to ask people who will tell you no? Admiral Grace Murray Harper, who was the woman who developed the computer compiler, which allowed all of us to have the smartphones that every one of us has here tonight. Her favorite saying was, it's always easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. Right? So, and she was a very important woman in my life. It has been my observation that women who are inducted into Halls of Fame, State Halls of Fame, the National Halls of Fame, there's Business Halls of Fame, there's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, there's all kinds of Halls of Fame, advocate for causes that are near and dear to their hearts. Lily, I think you're still doing CCAI. Gail, I heard you said you retired. Have you retired? Did you retire? Yeah. And you're never retired. Just like I'm never retired. All right. So, but there is passion and there's advocacy for causes that are near and dear to their hearts. So I'd like to actually hear each of you talk about what you see as the next phase and what it is that's the passion that's near and dear to you.
So my passion has been throughout my military and civil service career, just how do you help others? How do you give them tools so they can succeed? How can they improve their position? So I'm very fortunate in that I'm currently a trustee at the El Pomar Foundation. And so, amazing organization, and it does allow me to feel like I'm giving back. At least statewide, as a trustee, we can see the issues that are going on. You think about the purpose, the Penrose legacy, in thinking about empowering, thinking about enhancing, improving, and encouraging the betterment and the well-being of all the people of the state of Colorado. And it's across so many sectors and so many areas, everything from human services, education, health, community and civic action. So there's enough there to find some connection for me to really latch on to. But I think also in retirement, I'm also trying to think about transitioning to what other possibilities are out there. How can I take all the things that I've learned over my 30 years in the military and find ways to impart that on other people or give back and pay that rent that my parents are talking about. So a little bit in the redefinition stage here as I've been transitioning, but really the El Pomar Foundation, I just have to give a shout out to them because they are really so fulfilling for me in terms of helping others.
Well, like Gail said, I'm still doing CCAI. I'm going to be 34 years by September. And after 13,000 children from 8 countries later, we are still developing new countries. China closed, but we are still, children are children, doesn't matter where they come from. And if they are orphaned, abandoned, vulnerable children, then it's my passion to serve them and to save them and to find them a permanent home. So that passion is going to be continued. I'm not working 16 hours a day like a China time. I was doing that Monday through Friday, 8 to 6 in my office, 7 to 1 a.m. in my home office because that's China's 3 p.m. And Sunday night is China's Monday. But China closed, it's a lot easier life-wise for me, but mission is not finished. My passion is still to serve the children. Doesn't matter where they come from. As long as I'm allowed, I had to ask permission, I'm sorry. If that country doesn't give me the permission to do it, I can't. Oh. I do my part.
Okay. The latter part of my life, I've been on boards, 70, 80 boards, and did all that stuff. But let me tell you what I'm doing now. Talk about crazy? Yes, I'm crazy. About 2.5 years ago, you heard of the Commission 15250 Commission? We're celebrating 150 years of Colorado's going to be a state this year, 2026, and then the United States in this year too. For 250 years. Okay. So a friend of mine's on this commission, Ramona Martinez. She was the first Hispanic woman on the city council as the president. She's also
and she's also an inductee. And she's supposed to come to me tonight and show me about allocation. So anyway, she calls me up, she says, Patricia, I'm on this commission, and the governor appointed me to this commission, and we have to come up with a project for Colorado, because we're going to celebrate, 150 years. And she says, let's talk. So she invited 2 or 3 other people to sit around on my conference table, and she says, what are we going to do? And me and my big mouth, I said, because Jennifer and Carolyn know all about this, I said, gee, why don't we build a museum? Mrs., what are you saying? Well, we ought to build a museum for the first settlers of Colorado. Right? Sounds right. The indigenous, Mexican, and Spanish were really, and of course the indigenous were already here. But the other settlers were Spanish and Mexican, right? And we are all mixed. I mean, we're God's children. Hey, we're all mixed. We have a little bit of everything in us. So we did it 2.5 years ago. We found the property. We negotiated with Auraria campus. We got the property on Auraria campus to build this museum. We have worked so hard, 7 days a week for the last 2.5. I am pooped. But you know what? We're going to do it. Because you know why? Everybody needs to know about history. And we're going to do it more now than ever, if you know what I mean. So, we're going to have a launch at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science on May the 20th. If you want to come, you'll be invited. We want everybody to come because we're going to show you where it's going to be, what it might look like. We still need our architects. It's going to be first class. Because we're going to talk about history. We're going to talk about people's stories. We also are going to have an educational lab with it.
Is it online?
We have a website, but we're getting that.
Where is it? Is it on with all the other places on?
What are you talking about?
Is it on the 7th?
Yeah, where's the museum going to be? All right, you know where, when you're going down Auraria Parkway, you know where the hotel is?
Yes.
And then on the other side, behind the hotel, west of the hotel, is, there was a ball field, but now they're building a building. We're right in the middle of that. Right in the heart of it. Talk about location. So, I have 23 people on the board. They're from all over the state. Have African American, Jennifer's on it, Harris, Carolyn Terrell's on it, Asian, indigenous, Hispanic, white, younger, older, gay, straight. You name it, we got the perfect board. That's what board should look like, right? And everybody's contributing. I mean, they're from all over Colorado. And that's what's, and let me tell you, it's about economic development. This museum is going to belong to the community. It's not going to belong to any organization or company. And we have to raise $20 million, $21 million, we're going to do it. Hell or high water, we're going to do it. And so that's my passion. And that will, it's for everybody. It's for everyone. It's for all colors, all types, so that we all are proud of where we all came from. And, that's what it's about. We need to come together. So that's what I've been doing.
This is the last question, Barb. So make it brief if you can. I'm not being optimistic there. So, what statement or piece of advice do you live by that you would like to share with the audience tonight? And that was one of the pre-planted questions.
Okay, thank you. I think about something that stuck with me when I was a cadet at the academy. And I started reading about Eleanor Roosevelt. And the reason I started looking into her was because what she did for the Tuskegee Airmen, being at the Air Force, the flying, saying they were such exemplars for the legacy of air power and the things they did for the country. But what I found out was she said a lot of other wise things and did a lot of wise things. And so there's one quote she has that I latched onto because when I was at the academy, that was one of the most intense physical and mental experiences I had ever had in my life up to that point. And so when I thought about things I had to do, like jump out of an airplane, right, fly a glider, fight another woman with pugil sticks, things I hadn't done before, what gives you confidence? You know, what makes you say, I can do something different and new, and I won't be afraid of it? How do I reduce anxiety? I do believe that when you do new experiences, that's how you stretch and you grow and you build your little toolbox of skill sets, but you have to be willing to try these different things. So what I want to share tonight is you must do the things that you think you cannot do. And so that has always served me well.
I love that. I love that. I didn't prepare this, but I love that because, you know, when we started CCAI, I'm not a social worker. Joshua, my husband, is not a social worker. And the traditional adoption agencies are started with social workers. I was on VA. I was on my job. I was attorney. I was not a social worker. But CCAI became the world's largest in 5 years because my passion. So I just say you have to believe yourself and keep working on your passion. Never give up. So that's my one advice. Another advice is from China's traditional saying, and it comes like, don't be afraid of it to be a failure. Because failure is the mother of a success.
You know, I think what's really important when I try to think of, not overall, but how, when I wake up in the morning, how do I wake up? You know, what am I thinking of? What do I need to do? And for me, I kind of started today with giving thanks and saying, you know, just direct me in the right place. Just let me be a kind soul. Let me really be who I am today and not be distracted or see many things. I'm really serious about that. And I do. I think of that every single morning when I wake up. Let's have another great day, because we're given a brand new day every day. Brand new. How are we going to get through that day? And that's not to say that there are trials and tribulations. There are, but you know what? You've got to learn how to go over it, under it, and even sometimes through it. And we can do it because we're strong, we're smart, we're loving, we're good people. It's just that we have to convince ourselves, because every one of us have choices every day. We have choices to say yes or no. And it's up to us. And one of the things I wrote is I said, your worth is measured by your own happiness in life. And I really believe that every day we're given a gift. And I believe it in the core of my soul. And a lot of you who know me know that I believe that. And I just want to be gentle. I want to be kind. I want to help people. Because you know what? It's not about me anymore. I'm done. I've done. I know I've done good things, and I know that's why my life is so blessed. Because when you give, it's going to come back tenfold. So that's
One final round of applause, please, for Gail.
Well, that wasn't the final round of applause. We're going to give them one more.
So
group of women, Gail, Lily, PBR, and our wonderful moderator, Jill. Yours are the stories that stay with us. They're the very things that inspire us, remind us of what it is and how important it is to be who we are and what we love. We talked a lot about passion tonight. I believe we are our passions, and you guys very much a depiction of that, so thank you very much. We do this from my phone, and it's not as easy as it looks. You remind us of what's possible, and exactly why we at the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame love what we do. Thank you for your honesty, your wisdom, and for sharing your journey with us tonight. I personally want to thank all of you in ways you all impacted me in different ways just by learning your stories. I think that goes for all of us at the Hall. We have been so impacted by our inductees, and we honor you in many different ways. So thank you for that gift. But we couldn't do what we do without our volunteers. So I'm going to bring up Alyssa. She is one of our volunteer coordinators. She's on the events committee, and she has a few words to say about our volunteers and our volunteer program.
Thank you all. And for those of you who are feeling inspired tonight, and maybe even wondering how you can be a part of this work, there is a place for you. Through the Empower Her Volunteer Program, you have the opportunity to engage more deeply, support our mission, and help amplify the stories of extraordinary women across Colorado. Because preserving her story is not just something we celebrate, but something that we build together. Thank you to all of our volunteers supporting our event this evening. We appreciate your passion and engagement with the Hall. Thank you all. And I'm going to go back over to Barb.
Thank you, Alyssa. All right, well, I kind of want to go to the podium, so my script is up there. One moment. Okay, one moment. One moment. Thank you. Okay, well, this was pretty freaking amazing, I have to say.
That wasn't in the script.
Yeah, that was just like, this was a very, very powerful evening, and I am so proud of each and every one of you on the panel. I learned far more than I knew before, so it was very exciting. All right, hang on one second. I'm going to get to the right page. I'm going to talk about films, our Great Colorado Women's Film Series. Betty Hyde wasn't able to join us this evening. So, speaking of powerful stories, I'd like to recognize an amazing woman whose passion and vision have ensured that these stories never get lost. And that's Betty Hyde. She's the executive producer of the Great Colorado Women's Film Series. Betty's a past board chair for the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame and is the creative force and genius behind the Great Colorado Women's Film Series. The Great Colorado Women's Film Series was born out of a simple but powerful belief that every woman's story deserves to be told. Produced for the Colorado Women's Hall of Fame, our series honors by doing something no award alone can do. We sit down with them, we listen, we learn their stories from childhood forward, through triumphs and struggles and everything in between. We capture their lives on films. Those stories are never lost. Since we launched in 2014, we've produced 36 films, shining a light on the little-known, unreported stories of both contemporary and historical women. All 36 films for the Great Colorado Women's Film Series are on our website. You can easily watch them through Vimeo. They're amazing. Lily and Jill on the panel both have films, so you should check them out. Right now we're hard at work on 5 more films that'll be released throughout this year. For the past 7 years, with this year marking our 8th year, our films have aired on Rocky Mountain PBS, and we picked PBS, Rocky Mountain PBS, because they're the only statewide television station that bring these stories into living rooms across Colorado and beyond. Along the way, we've been humbled and honored to receive 15 Heartland Emmy nominations, which is freaking amazing. And the team has won 4 Emmy Awards. Very proud. In fact, the women on our panel tonight, Gail, Lily, Patricia, and Jill, represent exactly the kind of stories we live to tell. So we already do have Lily, and we already have Jill. So Gail and Patricia, you guys better get cracking. Sorry, that wasn't. All right. Anyways, but what moves us most is that more than 1.25 million people in nearly every country in the world have watched at least one of our films. People everywhere are discovering Colorado through the stories of the extraordinary women that helped build it. So, in closing, I just really want to say thank you, and I want to leave you with this. Every story we've honored tonight started with a woman who chose to act, who chose to lead, and who chose to believe that her voice, her work, and her impact mattered. And it did, and it still does. So may we leave here tonight inspired to tell more stories and to lift more voices and continue shaping a future where women's contributions are fully seen, fully valued, and fully celebrated. Thank you for being here tonight and honoring her story. And I do have one other quick announcement. We had a late arrival for a special guest, and Miss Wanda James, who's running for U.S. House District CD1. So thanks for joining us, Wanda. So just in closing, our next event, which we don't have a full event date and venue lined up yet, but it will be in the middle of July, and we will be announcing the new class of Colorado Women's Hall of Fame inductees, probably sometime in this July 15th range. And so that will be the class of 27 that we will announce in July, and we will celebrate in March of 27. So thank you so much for being here this evening.